I'm going to start with, and to let you know that we're not doing actually clinical work, but it's going to be like practical steps that I'm going to give you. Because in the morning, you guys felt like we want something that, what exactly we're going to be doing with the members, that we're going to be helping them. So what I'm going to try to do now with you is highlight some criteria for the addiction, and also give you some practical steps, and also show you some of the obstacles that you might face when you are having a member that's struggling with sexual addiction. So we have the sexual addictions here are compiled into 3 different levels. And as you see, it depends on what the person is struggling with. We want you to be very aware of what's going on with the person. So don't go in with a mentality or mindset that I know addiction, so I'm gonna treat the person or deal with the person from like that perspective that I know of. But I have to know what the person is struggling with. So the first level here, we're talking about affairs, masturbation, watching pornography and masturbating while watching pornography, phone sex. And this is actually, sometimes people are not aware that when they talk about sex and get aroused during phone conversation, that can turn actually to be a sexual addiction. So for us, we need to guide the person from what they're going to be telling us, guide them to see what type of level of addiction that they have. The second level, it's more of illegal prostitution. And sometimes it goes into some criminal behaviors. And it takes a lighter level from the next one that we're going to talk about. But as you see, public sex, and you can see that anywhere. And sometimes we watch stuff like that and we feel like this is part of the culture here. But sometimes it's not, when it takes a higher level of that specific behavior. Level 3 here, pretty much it's all criminal, rape, child molestation. So if I hear someone that is coming to me and talking to me about his sexual struggles, I have to really identify, do we have a child involved in this? Or do we have even a family member involved in this? So we have to pay attention to all these details. And again, your role is not a counselor, but it's more of you to know what you are dealing with and what the person is struggling with, because based on the level, then your approach should be different. Say, for example, you have someone is an adult and he's struggling with sexual addiction. But in the meantime, you heard something from him in between the lines, or he said it very clear about a child that he's spending a long time with, or a child that he has a relationship with and it shouldn't be, or a molestation. If you are aware of something like that, you have to talk to Abuna, of course, first, and see how we're going to deal with that. Because if the person himself is struggling with something and he's bringing someone else into that struggle, so we have double people that we are dealing with. I want to focus more on some practical steps to give you. As Abuna mentioned this morning, sometimes the type of addiction, it's combined with another one. So sometimes with the sexual addiction, we have alcohol, we have drugs, we have eating disorders, and we have sometimes compulsive working, compulsive spending, compulsive gambling. So what are the criteria so I can say that this person is addicted? What are these criteria? So the first criteria here is loss of control. So we feel that the person is unable to stop himself at any time given. So for example, he's going to say, I'm going to watch pornography for the next 15 minutes, and then I'm going to go to work. He's unable to stop at that time. He wants to, but he's unable. Compulsive behavior, it's irresistible to him. So he wants to stop sometimes, but the resistance that he has to it, it's very low, so he tends to engage in that behavior unstoppably. Efforts to stop, sometimes the person will make a lot of efforts to stop, get a lot of help from people, sometimes professional help, sometimes a father of confession, sometimes a friend, parents, whatever, but they're going to try to get some help to stop, but they are unable to. So keep in mind that at the end of this, they are unable to stop the behavior. Loss of time. They are spending great time, engaging in this behavior. Preoccupation. All what they can think about is pornography, sex, That's all what is going in their head. They can be in class attending a lecture or something, but in the background of their head, they are watching exactly what they can be watching at home. So this is a preoccupation. It's like it's constantly in their mind. Inability to fulfill obligations. Sometimes actually they decide not to go to work, they decide not to go to school just to be by themselves, to watch and engage in that. I have a client actually, she has truancy, so for the entire year, maybe she went to school for like 5 or 6 days out of the entire year, even though the attendance officer took her to court just because of that, and in front of the judge. Yeah, I'm going to be at school. Yes, I'm going to be at school. And then we don't know why she doesn't want to go to school. But now we found out because all what she does at home is to watch, and sometimes she even bringing people to the house. Without us knowing this, we're trying to fix one area as truancy. She doesn't go to school, but the actual problem is totally something different. So for us to be aware of what's going on and try to identify the root of it. The next one is the continuation. The person continue with the same behavior despite any consequences that he or she might face. Like that example that I just gave you, we are at court, she is at risk to go to MESH, which is, it's not a morning school, but it's more to be in custody, and for her not to be allowed to go to school, and sometimes they even go into residential facilities just to get them to stop. If we're talking about adults, how much money they are spending on obtaining these videos. Sometimes they go overboard with that. So financial, legal, social, and sometimes what are the consequences if we have a married couple and person, and I'm not going to say a man or a woman because both of them are struggling, but if we're going to say the husband is watching pornography and he's not meeting the needs of his wife, then it's affecting the marital relationship. Escalation. Escalation means that the more the person is watching, the more he feels that he wants more. So it's always, I need more, I need more. So if we say about food and we just ate, so I ate a slice of pizza, but I feel like I want more. I feel like I want to have more. And when we actually deal with this, we have to kind of measure. How did the person start with? I have a high schooler from church here. His mom came to me and talked to me about her son. He's not actually watching pornography. It was more of a video of, I would say, 6 to 7 minutes. That's it. 2 people kissing. But to him, that was fulfilling his need. But then after 6 months, then his mom was telling me, no, it started to be something different, that he added to that something, because the 6 or 7 seconds video is not enough anymore. So he needs to increase that. Otherwise, whatever gratification that he's trying to get, he's not able to get that anymore. Losses. So sometimes they lose friendships, they lose relationships, work, because they cannot continue with that. With my client that I was telling you about, she had to repeat a year at school because she did not attend school. So that preoccupation, it also brings consequences and a lot of losses in their life. Withdrawal. So when they try to stop these behaviors, sometimes it's very, very overwhelming to them, and it can cause a lot of emotions and anxiety, restlessness, insomnia, irritability. They cannot even function normally because they are trying to stop something that it's hindering them, but through that process, they endure a lot of pain. Very quickly about the assessments. So the goal of the assessment, again, we're not doing clinical work with the members, but for us to understand and for the person also to see if he is really struggling, or I'm trying to convince him that he is struggling, or someone else is trying to convince him. So we compile these assessments, and the youth pornography one, that is one, it's pretty much the same, but it's a little bit tailored in the language. But if you look at the parent perception youth pornography, it's pretty much the same questions. But this is for the parent to say, I see that my child is using pornography. I see my child is spending more time on the internet. I see this. And the reason we do this, because sometimes the child or the person perception is totally different. And we're going to talk about that later, because sometimes they feel, I don't have a problem. It's okay. And some people were talking to me during lunch. It's like, it's acceptable here in this culture that masturbating is okay. I want to relieve that stress off of my body. But then At home, his parents will tell, no, 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 this is wrong, this is haram, this is whatever. So sometimes we get the parent to also provide their input. So for us to kind of match this, do they have the same perception? Do they assess it at the same level? Or maybe the child will say, I'm only watching for like just 15 minutes a day or 30 minutes a day. But the parents might be able to tell you more than that, and especially if the parent is involved in a child's life. So this is what I want to highlight about this. One of the assessment, the language, it could be like more advanced for some of the people that you're going to be dealing with. So again, you as servant, you have to tailor every assessment. You have to tailor every approach. Every word that comes out of your mouth, it has to be tailored towards that person. You got to personify that program, the whole program, just to meet the need of that specific person that you're dealing with. Because if you think here that you're coming for us to give you steps and you're going to go home and you're going to do that exactly with the person, you are mistaken, because everyone is unique, their struggle is different, and the approach to them is totally different. I'm going to share a quick story with one of my clients. And he was very resistant at the beginning, and he would say, I don't know why I'm here. I don't need to be here. There is nothing wrong with me. But then over time, when he started to see that there is something going on, and we try to identify the issues, then you want to reach with them with a state to say, what are your goals in life? Once he said, I want to be a good father. That's all what I want. When I have kids, I want to be a good father. And you just take that and make it as a goal. Remember when you said you want to be a good father? So let's talk about 1, 2, 3. Do you think when this is going on with you, this is what you're struggling with, do you think that's going to allow you to be that good father that you want? What can we do now to prepare you to be that good father in the future? I'm going to talk now about some of the obstacles that might face us when we are helping a member. These obstacles could be that I am doing all the steps, the 12 steps, the Steps to Freedom workbook. I'm doing all of the activities with the person, but I don't see a change. What could that be? Why? Why the person is not changing, even though I'm doing the program exactly as it said? Everyone will go through different stages of change. So in order for the person to change his or her behavior, they go through different changes. But we want to understand what are these changes, okay? And remember in the beginning when Chris talked about the law of power to change someone. Do I have that power to change the person? No. So sometimes the person has to go through these stages in order to reach the maximum and to be able to be into an action mode. And we're going to talk about that more and more. Some of these stages that we're going to talk about now, it's cycle. So sometimes they go from one stage to another, and sometimes they linger in one stage for a longer time. So it's not like every 2 months or every 3 months I'm going to be able to move them from one stage to another, or between day and night they can move from one stage to another. They can, but they need the power of motivation and encouragement that you're going to provide to them. Your goal actually is to move them from one stage to another. So the stages that we have here, and it's very important that we pay attention to the order, and this one I'm going to come back to it. So the pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, and relapse. And I included the relapse here, and as you see it, it's in the middle. It's in the middle because it's part of the process. And if we are not aware of that, then all what we're going to focus on, I want the member with me to be free of this addiction. Then if I see a relapse, at that time I'm going to feel what? I failed, or the person failed as well, which is not true. And we're going to talk in details about this. The previous slide here, keep in mind and keep these percentage in mind. 40% of the people that struggling with addiction and they are trying to change, 40% they are in the pre-contemplation. And we're going to talk what's pre-contemplation. 40% in the contemplation, only 20% in the preparation and action. Okay? So keep that in mind. So when we talk, you will see a big difference here. Okay, so in this stage, pre-contemplation, they come to you and they are unmotivated. They are not ready. And remember, for the stages of change, we are trying to assess their readiness to change, because it's not going to happen between day and night. They go through these stages. So the first one, the pre-contemplation, they are unmotivated. They are not ready. Sometimes they are not aware of what's going on, and they have no plans whatsoever to change. When you get a person that is in the pre-contemplation, are we going to say, oh, sorry, you can't, oh, we only help you when you are in the action mode? Do I let him go or let her go? No. I help them to move from the pre-contemplation to the contemplation, and we're going to say how to do that. What do you need to do with them in the pre-contemplation? You need to increase their awareness a little bit. You need to validate their feelings. They're going to tell you, you know, when I was a child, I was abused. Or when my parents, you know, didn't love me. My parents don't listen to me. Whatever that they are telling you, you need to validate that, because these feelings are really connected. And if we're going to remember the diagram that Abuna showed us, and how the emotions and the thoughts and the will are connected together under the soul, so we need to make sure that we are validating his or her feelings. Otherwise, they're going to feel what? Unheard, not understand. Explore with them. Okay? Some of the questions for you to ask the member to see if they are in pre-contemplation, and also to move them to the next one. What would it have to happen for you to realize that you have a problem? That's just a simple question. What could happen? What would make you feel that there is a problem? I have someone here from a child from middle school. And his mom caught him watching porn. So it's like she brought him, Nagla, can you talk to him? It's like, okay. But he came and talked to me. The first thing he said, I don't know why mom wants me to talk to you. I really don't want to. I don't know why I'm here, but she's insisting. So my question, I wonder why mom is insisting. What is she thinking about? So you need to make them think more and more. And this is how you get them to move from one level to another. Otherwise, he's going to be stuck into that pre-contemplation, which 40% we have. Sometimes they come, and sometimes they even go to Abuna and say, I have this problem, but then they go back and forth. You know, I do have a problem, but I don't know what to do with it, and then they lose that interest. So I can help them with that. What things have you tried in the past? Can you talk to me about that? And they might tell you, you know, I talked to someone before, and all what they did is just listen to me. They never gave me any practical steps. So keep that in mind. So this person is looking for practical steps. When you are listening to the person, I want your whole being listening to the entire person in front of you. You're not just listening to words, but also to conceptions that the person has. Look to their verbal and nonverbal communication. Look to their body language. If they talk and all of a sudden in between they start to cry, you know that now you are not just connected to their thoughts, but you are also connected to their emotions. And this is what you need to know. What's breaking them? What's really affecting them that's making them unable to speak? Contemplation, the next level. So we were able to move him from one level to another. The person might acknowledge that there is a problem, but what's the problem about? Let me get you to this one. I like it. Confusion. Yes, I have a problem. I need to change. I'm considering that there is an issue here. My awareness increased a little bit. So the thermometer here next to me tells me, okay, the person starts to cooperate a little bit, but still they are not at the level to do anything or to make any commitment. So they might tell you, okay, I'm gonna change, I'm gonna meet with you, and I'm gonna, you know, stop using the internet, whatever plan that you have with him. But you feel like the next day, all what you talked about, it's like gone. Gone. Nothing is there. And it's because he is not committed yet. Once you notice that, you know that the person is not ready for the change yet. Okay, so you continue to work on increasing their motivation. Encourage them. Bring that goal. I want to be a good father. What can you do now? Okay, you know that you want to be a good father. How can you build that? How can you earn that skill net from now? What can you do to teach yourself to be that father? So identify some stuff with the person through that talk. Because when we are asking you to call the person and talk to the person, it's not to spend time with him. And that's it. It's to really listen to every word they are saying, to explore what's going on with them. Encourage. I want you to use the power of encouragement with every person. Some of the questions that might help the person to move from contemplation to the next stage, which is preparation. What are the pros and cons for not changing? If you're going to continue in that road, what's going to happen? What are the consequences? Talk with me. This is how the question that Mina asked earlier, and he said about how do we know that that person has lies, or how do we sift through that? It's from what he's saying. If you really listen to it and pay attention, they might tell you, there is no hope that I can change. Where's that statement coming from? Who's giving him hopelessness? The devil. So with you talking with him, you can identify these lies. Costs and benefits of changing. There's costs with that, right? It's not for free and it's not easy, but they have to do the work. Talk to them about what helped in the past and what didn't help, because if they tell you what helped them, then you can build on that. If they tell you what it didn't help, then think about it first. Why it didn't help? Is it more of resistance from the person? Or it's more, was it hard for them to do? Or it's not really applicable to that person. So again, to think with them deeply. Okay, preparation, the next level. So the person actually in this one, he will start to take some serious thoughts, about the issue and what he wants to change. He might have an initial plan. Okay, you know what? I think things are getting out of hand. And you might hear people coming to you and say, I think my life is out of control at this point and I need help. They might have tried in the past to stop and they were not able to. So that failure kind of comes from the past. It makes them feel like discouraged a little bit, but they do have an initial plan. Like, okay, I'm gonna give it a try. It's like, okay, you move the things from the back burner. In the beginning, it wasn't on the burner at all. Then it moved to the back burner. Then this one, it's like, okay, I'm gonna put some fire here and I'm gonna have some plan on how I'm gonna tackle this. Again, you're gonna continue with them to identify some barriers. What are your problems? What are you afraid of? What can you do to resolve that? And you help them with that problem-solving skill. Again, you're gonna continue to encourage them and help them to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And the questions in preparation. So what kind of support do you feel you need the most? Because during that preparation, sometimes he needs like a push, and that push can get it from a lot of people around him. But it depends about his level of trust towards that person. So you build that initial plan with him. You kind of put the diagram for it. You are here and you want to reach that point and reach that goal. How can we reach it together? And then you put just a plan. You're not pushing anything, because I want you to picture this. If you keep pushing the person from one stage to another, you're not helping him. What you can do is come to me from this level to the next one, and you use your words. So you never push. If you end up pushing, then the person is going to be more resistant. But if you encourage and you ask him to move from one to another through the questions, through how you identify their thoughts and go through the lies that they have, then you are bringing him a step forward in the recovery road. Now we are into the action one. So here they are making change. And in this one, we said 20% are in the preparation and the action. But we have 40% pre-contemplation and 40% contemplation. So I want them to reach this one. So how many I'm going to be able to call them from one stage to another? So keep that in mind always. And in this phase, it takes a lot of effort from them. This is when they are really weak, because they go through withdrawal, they go through a lot of things that they have to do that they were not comfortable with. Before, they are comfortable with themselves. They are okay with the addiction that they are going through. They kind of medicated themselves with that type of addiction. So now you're asking them, stop taking that medication and be medication free. That's painful, and you have to show a lot of support to them during this phase. Now, you're not just doing this to him to come to you from the previous level, but you're holding his hand very tight in that stage so you can walk that walk with him. And this is our role, actually, as a servant. It's not really, I'm teaching you to do this. No, I'm walking this with you. I'm feeling the pain with you, but you can do it. Through that motivation and that encouragement, you can get him to really go through that stage. And in the action stage here, this is when we do the 12 steps. So it's not about when he comes to me, I'm going to do the 12 steps. It's not about that. Is he ready to do the 12 steps? Is he ready to go through the exercises? Because if he's not ready, I'm going to be wasting the time getting him to do something that he's not ready for, and I'm setting him up for failure. And I'm setting myself up too, because I want to help him, and I feel like my hands are tied, and I cannot help that person at this point because he's not ready yet. So instead of just jumping into the 12 steps or the activities, it's more to see where is he as far as level of readiness, and then get him to the right level to be in action mode, and then do the work with him. This is when you feel like I'm doing this from the right perspective. In the action stage, the person is struggling a lot with the habit. They put goals and they try to master things, but it's difficult. You have to understand. If you don't understand that it's difficult and it's just a task that the person is going to do, then that's not going to be helpful to you or to the member. Techniques. What you're going to do with that? You're going to encourage and make them feel more confident in that they can do it. And here you can use a lot of verses, and Hala brought to us a lot of verses, and she built our understanding about God's perspective, how to approach the situation. So it's not really a spiritual talk that we're hearing, but it more the foundational. How does God want us to approach a person? Once we are in action and we did the 12 steps and we are doing the exercises, all the activities day by day, step by step that you're going to do with the person. Another thing, since we're talking about the 12 steps, when you look at the 12 steps, it's very rich. How do I know that the person mastered step 1 for me to go into step 2? How do I know? So we have actually questions for you to reflect on and with the member and get to understand, is he there or not yet? Because you don't, the goal is not like every week I'm going to meet with you, I'm doing step 1, and then next week I'm doing step 2. It's not a robotic process. It's more is a relational process. The more you know the person, the more you try to help the person in the right way, in the right speed. If you push it too hard, the person is not going to cooperate with you. One of the mistakes that I did before, I had someone with a long history of addiction, but then she was in the pre-contemplation. I didn't have the patience for her. It's like, come on, you can do this. You know what? It's like, and she said, Nagla, that's too fast for me. And she said it like that. So, okay, what I heard from her, Nagla, slow down. Because otherwise I could have continued and said, no, you know, if you are at this point, you can do that. But no, I listened to her. So I slowed down. I took a step back, and then I said, okay, what do you want to do? You tell me and you guide the process, because it's not about me, it's about you when you are ready. So that gave her more confidence to continue with the recovery. So, and it's a different, there is a difference between every person. But again, I want you to look at the 12 steps here. Under every step, we have a lot of questions for you to answer and to reflect on with the member to evaluate that the person mastered that step before we move on to the next step. And I'm going to say it maybe 100 times. This is not a robotic process. So it's not step one, step two, next time, da-da-da. It doesn't work like that. You have to assess every time. Is the person ready today? Is he not ready? Because believe it or not, and we're going to talk about that now, next. We talked about actions and some of the questions that we can ask. What actions have you taken? What has helped and what has not? What might you do to replace things? And keep in mind the word replace. Okay, so I got the person to reach the action one, and we are in the process. We did the 12 steps, we did the exercises. And then the person is reaching maintenance. So he is in a stage now that he's doing great for a period, of 6 months. He's doing great, right? What could happen in that time? Relapse. And it could happen during all the stages, but there is a big difference if it happens in the previous ones than it happens in the maintenance, because in the maintenance, he spent already a good amount of time sober. But if it happened in the pre-contemplation or contemplation, the person is not already, working with you. He's not doing any work, but he's going to try to follow a little bit what you're saying. But if it happens in the maintenance, we want the person to sustain that progress that he made, that confidence that he was able to go, you know what, I did it. And if I did it for a day, I can do it for 2 days, 3 days. And you walk baby steps with them. And you keep encouraging. Sometimes with that relapse, then it starts to give them some ideas. Oh, I did it, so everything that I tried to do and to change, everything has been ruined because I relapsed once, twice. But relapsing, it's part of the process. And for us, we need to use this as a learning opportunity. It's no difference between my child making a mistake and a relapse. It's the same thing. And we all do mistakes every day, right? We all relapse every single day in front of God, right? We keep doing the same thing over and over and over. But for me, as a servant and helping a member in that phase here, I need to be fully aware of their needs and why did it happen. And at that time, I need to develop a plan. Why did it happen? Because in the maintenance, they're supposed to sustain it, but things happen, and things will happen, and we have to know to do that. And in order to encourage them, listen, I'm going to tell him, you've been struggling with this for a year, 2, 3, whatever, but you were sober for how long? So to me, that's a progress. My eyes and my assessment has to be from the positive standpoint. Like, I always see what he accomplished. The member might look only at the negative aspect of it. Oh, I relapsed. I did it again. I lost my sobriety. But in actuality, no, wait a minute. No, you were sober for this period of time. Before, you were watching 3 or 5 videos a day. Maybe in this relapse, you did it for like 1 a day. So again, show it to him from a teaching perspective versus increasing the shame and guilt that the person might be going through. We're going to talk a little bit and focus on relapse and how to prevent that. And the purpose of this, we want to have some skills to help the person not to continue in that stage. So again, relapse, it's like full return to the behavior, the former behavior, whatever it is. Highlight the word full return. So if it's 1 episode, that's not a full return. This is just a hiccup. But a full return, that means he's going back to the former self, like the way he was in the beginning. So again, we're going to go through the stages again and the cycle again. But it could be faster because we got him to learn some skills to know about himself and to know about his problems. And sometimes the person during that relapse might say, why do I need to continue in that program? I already relapsed. I lost it. And they might give up. We need to do what? Be positive, encourage, validate their feelings. We cannot just say, oh, he relapsed, so I'm not going to do anything with him. And again, this is not a clinical presentation, but this is just to give you practical steps. So for this model, they actually highlighted something very important. They highlighted 3 high-risk situations, and these are responsible 75% of the relapse situations. So if we're going to ask, why do they relapse? What happens if they were able to maintain sobriety for this time? What happened all of a sudden that the person is relapsing? And we have to ask that question. So they identified 3 high-risk situations. So the first one, if we read it, that reminds us of, again, the diagram that Abuna talked to us about, and the halt, right? Being hungry, angry, right? It's all about the emotions. And us as servants, if we're not paying attention to what the person is saying, we're not going to be able to identify what are his high risks. So I have the young boy that his mom brought him. His main issue that he feels that his mom and dad prefer his sisters over him. So he has hunger for what? For love. Then he wants to be loved in a different way. And all what he can find at this time, just through this. It's like, I'm going to live in that fantasy that I might be loved this way as what I watch. But he has that hunger. He has that feeling of being rejected and anxiety. And we see now with a lot of kids and adults, we have a lot of anxiety, depression. What's going on? And we go to them and we say, oh, you know what? In the Bible, God said 366 times, do not be afraid. True, but is he going to be receptive to that at this point? I can get him as a servant to be receptive to that when I'm doing what? Moving him from one stage to another. When I push him, then he's going to push God away. And I don't want that because they see God in me. I am the reflection of God to him. So if I'm going to appear as pushing, then God is not going to be patient for me. God wants me to be from this stage to that stage and be addiction free. So if I am God to him, I have to connect him with God. The second situation will be conflicts. So after a conflict at home or with a relationship, then the person wants to medicate himself. He wants to run away from that conflict. He doesn't want all the disturbance coming from that conflict. So what's going to take him away from it? Addiction and whatever medication he's doing. Direct or indirect social pressure. Again, at school, they talk about it, right? At work, they talk about it during happy hour, right? We're not going to deny that. So they do talk about it everywhere. Sometimes kids at school do watch each other, show each other, you know, oh, look on my phone, look at my phone, and they show each other stuff. So it comes from these situations. How can I prevent that or protect my kids from that? Or even as adult, how can I prevent that? If I know that this situation will lead to this type of discussion and will lead to this incident, then as a servant, I'm seeing the pattern with the person. He's open with me, he's sharing with me, then I can definitely guide him. Listen, this is a high-risk situation for you. Going through the same pattern as in the past, some people even going to the same places is considered a high-risk situation for them because it reminds them, it takes them to a place where they don't want to be in. So it's better to stay away from that. And I'm not going to be able to know all of this unless he is open with me and he's able to trust me. And how can I get that trust from him? It's earned. It's not going to be given like that. I'm going to come to you and say everything. So it's over time. And by you showing that support, showing the picture of God, the real God that we want him to see. So in order to prevent relapse or to help the person, we have to talk about more of coping. The person is struggling with some stuff, so we want him to cope with that. We want to have ideas. How can I help the person cope with what's going on with him? He feels depressed. That's not going to go away right away. He needs professional help for that. He has an anxiety. He has this. He has that. He has some lies about his parents. My parents didn't love me. My parents didn't do that. So how can we get him to cope with some of that? So these are just simple coping strategies. The abstinence violation effect, which is when the person's relapsed, this is more of like, okay, this is a turning point for me. Either the person is going to continue with the same behavior, or I can pull him back from that to go to the right direction. So if the person is full of shame at that time and full of guilt, and they can stay in that for a long period of time. So I can help the person to shorten that period of time by just what? Encouraging, validating, and be supportive to him. Okay, so we're going to talk more about the coping strategies. So you have a list and you have more online, but what works for me is different than someone else. Like some people would like to exercise. If you tell me, Nagla, you look depressed, go exercise, that's going to give me more depression and anger with that. But you have to see what's going to work with that person. So yes, you have a list. Don't go through the list and say, which one can you do? You might be able to do that. But sometimes also you can help the person, guide him through a healthy coping mechanism. Because the entire time he learned to cope in a way that it's not healthy. So you're actually rewiring his brain to learn from soothing himself in a healthy way, not in a destructive way. Like taking a nap. If I take a nap, I'm not going to sleep at night. So do you think that's going to be coping for me? No. Because I'm going to be up all night. You have to study that with the person and see what he likes and try things with him. Listening to music, I like music, so I can definitely learn from that. This one is very important, and for us as servants, refusing skills. Just imagine we are fasting now, and we're thinking about food and full stomach, right? And sometimes we see chocolate, and we have chocolate at work all the time, so sometimes it's what? It's overwhelming for me to say no to all of this. Guess what? When he is by himself and he wants to watch porn or engage in sexual behavior, how he's going to say no to himself, not to others, to himself, to stop and resist that. What you can do as a servant is to practice with him how to say no by modeling. You know, if you have the thought, and don't wait for the thought to come, because sometimes you have some warning signs that you're going to get into that. If you see a picture, that's a warning sign, because you know from your pattern that when you see a picture, that kind of arouses you, and then you look into getting to watch a porn. What can you do to say no? Is it to call someone? Is it to go take a shower? Or maybe you need someone to assist you to even take the plug off your computer. So you need to teach him the refusal skills, to identify it first, and then how to say it to himself. Sometimes we encourage people to say no out loud, because when you say it to yourself, sometimes it sounds like, no, I'm not going to do it. I keep saying no, but it keeps coming back. But when you teach him and guide him to say, no, I'm not going to do it with that assertive voice, then you're teaching him a skill to say it to himself first, and then to get the assistance of others to help him. So rehearse and model that for him. Support system. You cannot be the only support person for him. It needs a village to raise a child, and it needs a lot of people to help that person to overcome his addiction or her addiction. So who are we going to get? Are we going to go and tell everyone? No. Definitely Abuna is involved. He's the one, the referring source. And the second, maybe his spiritual guide, maybe a parent. And that's something that we need to discuss. If it's a child or even adult, an adult can still talk to his parents about something like that. Something that I want to share here, that when Abuna Paul keeps talking to the parents, and he said, I sit with all the kids in confession, and they all talk about this. I have 3 kids in high school. And Abuna, after he came back from the retreat, we had a meeting, and Abuna kept saying, you need to talk to your kids, you need to follow up. It's like, okay, that was overwhelming to me to hear about it, and I have 3 in high school. So I went to Abuna and I told him, Abuna, is there anything that I need to worry about with my kids so I can work on it? So I did not ask him, like, tell me what's going on with my kids. Fabuna, it's like you need to talk all the times to your kids about that. So I went home, I took my son for a ride. It's like, okay, I'm gonna be straightforward with you. I'm very straightforward with my kids. So I said, listen, I was attending a meeting, and Abuna said that every time, you know, he is in confession, a lot of boys and girls are struggling with pornography or with, you know, sexual addiction. I talked even to my kids about masturbation. So, and he looked at me and he said, oh, Mama, yeah, you're right. Yeah, Abuna talked to us about this. And that was an opening door for me to talk about him directly about something like that. And I want to understand what's his perception of sexual addiction. And I started to ask him questions. So that's a bonding time as parent and child. The second thing, you are the source of education to your child. So if they have a question, they're going to come back to you. And the third thing, he's going to trust me because I didn't tell him or anything. I told him straight, Abuna was saying this and I want to hear from you. And he was very open and honest, and he said everything in his heart. It's like, Mommy, yes, Abuna talked to us and made us, you know, understand how we keep our eyes clean and purified our ears. So even his spiritual, you know, level, I want to know that. Then I have two girls, so I didn't only talk to my boy. No, to the girls. Come on, girls. Abuna said this and this and that. So let's talk about it. So girls and boys, don't even shy from your kids to share that with them so you can be the source of education. If we're talking now about adults struggling with this, if we can prevent it from their childhood, then us as parents, we need to do that work from now. Family members can be a great support, especially if the family is aware. If the family is not aware, what can I do as a servant? Hey, pay attention to your child. Hey, put some filter in your computers. Abuna can do that, right? But he didn't. Because he doesn't want to expose anyone. And our job as servants, we don't want to expose children. We don't want to expose anyone. But what can we do to get the child the help he needs? And when I say child, because we have problem in middle school, high school, boys and girls, so that are considered child. So what can we do as servants to help them? One of the things, actually, it's not our role to expose them. In no way that we're going to go and tell the parents. But as we learn this, come to me from one stage to another, I'm going to bring the child to talk to his parent so they can be a support member, and then also I can get the family to be connected again as a whole. As the goal that Hala was saying, that for us to work together and to connect together to serve that member, right? I'm going to connect the member to the family because God entrusted that child to these two parents. I am, as a servant, spending only limited time with that child. How can I give him all the help he needs if the parents are not aware? So I'm not going to expose him, I'm not going to say anything, but maybe I can encourage him, model to him how to tell his parents, because we're going to need the assistance of his parents. If you look at the exercises, one of them, the first one actually, is a clean house. Clean house means clean your house from all the porn material, including the computer. So if it's a child and the parents don't know that the child is struggling with that, and we need the assistance of the parent to put filter or to even limit the usage of computer. So if they are not aware, and I did not encourage the child to come forward to talk to the parent. Some of the parents, they are not going to listen. They might actually harm the child. So again, this is when you tailor and personify the program to meet the need of the child. If there is a situation like that, definitely include Abuna, because it's not because the parents might react this way, they might not help. So bring others to help in that situation. But I would say definitely connect the child to the parent. I have full respect to the servants that when a child goes and talk to them, they bring them to the family. not to take the child. It's like, okay, come and tell me everything, and then they don't share anything with the family. It's like the family became the enemy because my parents don't hear me, my parents don't understand me. So if I provide the earring and the hearing to them, what's going to happen? They're going to disconnect totally from the family. And that's not a goal that we want for our program. Sometimes the parents, when you talk to them in the right tone and the right approach, they are very, very receptive. And I'm going to share an experience with you. Like, we had a girl that was struggling, but then she talked to her servant. And the servant told her, you need to talk to your mom. She was very, very anxious. No, I'm not going to do that. Da, da, da. But then at the end of the day, she did. With all the fear that her mom will react to it. But guess what? The mom heard the entire story and heard the servant's perspective. And she respected that so much. And her steps actually towards helping her daughter how to overcome it and what's going on in the house. And how can I as a parent, change my approach with my child so he doesn't have that halt, that hunger for love, the anger. Because I could be part of it. We cannot deny that. And everything that I learn, I always apply it to parenting because I know it's a circle. So whatever I do, whatever I struggle with, it's going to be in my kids. So I'm working on myself as a protection for my kids so they don't struggle with the same issue that I'm struggling with. Okay, so here we're going to, remember when I said, remember the word replace. Because you're taking away from him a behavior that kind of numbed him. It made him at least happy for a little bit, for that gratification and satisfaction. What can he do or she do now to replace that behavior? We have to give him or her something else to do. And we can come up with a lot of ideas. And we can, first of all, I need to talk to him so I can know what he likes and his interests, because it's not about me. It's, again, about the person. So, and I can put these coping mechanisms, specific activities that they can start to learn. Learn a new skill. Learn a new skill. Use the, like now, at my house, we're trying to learn new skills. So my son is learning stuff at school, and he comes home and he wants to apply it. Okay, so we got him a table, and he started to paint the table. I got him a chair for the deck, and he started to paint that. So all his energy, he's putting that into something that he likes. So it's a new skill that he's learning, and he's teaching us some of that skill. So I'm talking now on the addiction level. If we can replace that behavior with a new behavior, it could be a new skill, a course that he can take, spending time with the family. It could be not comfortable in the beginning, but definitely it's worth trying that. And learning a new hobby. We all, especially coming from our culture, we don't pay attention to our hobbies and how to enrich this. We always focus on work and academics, but then at the end of the day, sometimes we don't encourage our kids to have hobbies and for us as adults to learn new ones. So definitely that's a good way for them to cope and to be more engaging with us.